When young people disappear, they are usually found pretty quickly. From forgetting to tell their caregivers where they're going, just getting hammered and sleeping it off, or in the worst case scenario, crossing paths with people of ill intent. Whether alive or dead, the cases are normally resolved within a few days or at worst a few weeks. In today's case, the time taken for resolution is measured in years rather than days or weeks. We're visiting a new country for this channel today for a heartbreaking and frustrating case. We're going to 2016 and to Korsor in Denmark for the tragic case of Emilie Meng. This is Murder of Crows. Korsor is a town in Zealand, Denmark. It's located in Slagelse municipality, and until 2007 Korsor was the seat of Korsor municipality. The town is located 15 kilometers or 9.3 miles west of Slagelse, 12 kilometers northwest of Skalskå, and connects to Nyborg through the Great Belt Bridge. Formerly the main ferry port from Zealand to Funen, the town of Korsor is divided into two halves by the Korsor Nor Inlet, with the northern part named Halskov. Most of the southern part of Korsor, or Korsor proper, is low-lying and prone to flooding. Korsor fortification is a set of fortifications located centrally in Korsor, and it was built in the 1100s. Today there are 5 buildings on the fortifications, though all were built at different times, and only the tower originates from the castle that was located on the fortification. The tower is dated from the 1200s. The Korsor Biograph Theatre, which opened in August 1908, some 117 years ago, is the world's oldest movie theatre in continuous use that is still operating. Korsor also has a mini town, which is a miniature model of the town of Korsor as it looked in 1875. It is built in 1:10 scale and has existed since 2001. Tarnborg is a manor located in Halskov in Korsor. Tarnborg was originally a village in which a castle was built in the 1100s. It was referred to as Korsor Castle, and later came under the name of, my god, I'm going to butcher this, Dyrhovdgard, and it was renamed to Tarnborg in 1846. The manor owns 334 acres. Now we know all places have incidents of violence, but Denmark, and indeed Scandinavia as a whole, is generally peaceful. So the case of Emilie Meng's disappearance in 2016 reverberated across the whole country. Emilie Meng Meng was born on the 31st of July 1998, and by early July of 2016 was a perfectly normal 17-year-old, with all of the hope, promise, and indeed angst that being a teenager comes with. But she did have a group of close friends, which, as a young person, is always a good safety net and support network. On July the 10th, 2016, Emilie and 3 of her friends went to the nearby town of Slagelse. Now, the friends would describe the mood that evening as very fun and exciting. A night where possibilities and potential fueled an anticipation of a good night. However, at some point during the night, Emilie's friends noticed a sudden shift in her behaviour. They could all tell that something was bothering her, and she was acting a bit off. Her friend Nicole particularly noticed this sullen and somewhat sulky mood on the train ride home. As it turns out, as the friends were going about their night, Emilie had received a text from the boy that she had been seeing, which put her in a really bad mood. To put it bluntly, the message totally pissed on her chips. According to Nicole, this boy had texted Emilie that they were never really dating, that they were never exclusive, and that he wanted to stop talking to her. So by 4 a.m, the 3 girls got into the taxi. They hugged Emilie and told her goodbye, and they told her to text them when she got home safely. Hopefully a good night's sleep would let her process the actions of a young man who was being a bit of a dick. However, that next morning, Emilie's mother, Helen, went into her bedroom to check on her, only to find that her bedroom was empty. Now, this didn't immediately concern Helen, because she knew that Emilie had gone out with her friends. She assumed that it was possible that Emilie had just crashed with a friend without letting her know. But by 9 a.m. that morning, when Emilie did not arrive at her church to sing in the choir like she did every single Sunday, those at the church were concerned. Helen called the church to make sure that she showed up for choir as she always did. But that was when Helen was told that she had not shown up. This was so out of character that immediately alarm bells were ringing really, really loudly. They also tried calling her mobile multiple times that morning, but her phone seemed to be off. Emilie would never behave this way. So immediately Helen reported Emilie as a missing person to the police. And they didn't stop there. That same day, Emilie's parents went to the media to start to spread awareness about their daughter's disappearance. By the next day, Monday, July the 11th, 2016, Police started searching for Emilie, and over 200 volunteers from the community came out to help. It was a massive response from like-minded people searching for one of their own. Police had utilised a helicopter, sniffer dogs and a dive team, all to search for Emilie. But as fate would have it, it had been raining pretty hard that day, so the helicopter had to stop searching, and ultimately the rain got so bad that pretty much all of the volunteers had to call off the searches. People did continue searching for her in the following days, with Emilie's family repeatedly appealing to the public for help in finding their missing daughter. There is something else that happened in this case that was a bit strange. So, of course, after Emilie went missing, her friends were frantically texting and calling her to see if she would pick up. But her phone seemed to have been turned off or run out of battery. And her friends imagined it probably ran out of battery because she had been charging her phone on the train that night, so it must have been quite low on battery. But there were people who were sending her Facebook messages, and Facebook was actually showing that Emilie was opening and reading these messages. So this gave a lot of people some hope that maybe she was still alive and just wasn't responding to anybody. But for some reason, and rightly so, police did not think that this was the case. They seemed very adamant that it probably was not her who was opening and reading these messages. If her phone was dead, she shouldn't have been able to access Facebook without access to a computer. So either her phone was not dead and she was ignoring the calls and messages, or the phone was in the hands of someone else who was checking her social media. Strange indeed, and rather ominous. Months continued to pass until October the 14th, 2016, when police arrested a suspect in connection to Emilie's disappearance and murder. The police arrested a 33-year-old truck driver who they accused of murdering Emilie. He was, in part, arrested because he did have a prior history of sexual assault against a minor. Police took him in and questioned him, and then searched around his home and his yard to see if they could find anything connecting him to Emilie. But when they checked his truck's GPS data, it showed that he was not in the area of Korsor on the night of Emilie's disappearance. Police had also been working to analyse cell phone traffic around the area, and they found over 200 phone numbers that they classed as interesting. However, it was later reported that there was a data loss incident where all of the numbers that they had been obtained had been erased. Fuck me. So people were outraged that people may have had their hands and eyes on Emilie's murderer's phone number, but they just lost it. By 2019, police said they were able to get all of the data back. Quite why it took 3 years to recover the data is a puzzle to me, but then I'm not a tech expert. If someone can explain it to me in the comments, I would be very grateful. Now, with it being this channel, I'll give the spoiler now. There isn't a happy ending. As time continued to pass without any new leads or any new information, the public was becoming scared and frustrated. Emilie's case was growing cold, and it was starting to seem that the police were just not getting anywhere. But Emilie's friends and family's worst fears were confirmed when a body was found at around 4 p.m. on December the 24th, so Christmas Eve, in 2016. And while I'm glad there was a resolution, even though it was desperately tragic, I'm going to ask my regulars a question now. Who do you think found the body? Say it with me. A dog walker. There had been a man who was walking his dog in the forested area near Renemark's Backer Lake, near Borup, when he thought that he had seen something in the lake. He walked closer and he soon realized that what he had spotted was a body. Naturally, he called the police to report what he had found. And it was confirmed the next day, Christmas Day, that this body did belong to 17-year-old Emilie Meng. Now, the area where Emilie's body had been found was actually 37 miles away from where she was last seen at the Korsor train station. So people were wondering, how did she get there? Was she killed after she was kidnapped, and then someone drove her all the way down there and then dumped her? Was she kidnapped in the area and then held in this new area before she was murdered there and then dumped there? Police said, though, that based on the level of decomposition of her body, they believe that she had been dumped shortly after her disappearance, and that she had been in that water ever since. Now, police had been receiving tips throughout this entire investigation, but they had never really come forward to the public to tell them about these tips. And on one hand, I can understand not wanting to point the investigation, or indeed the public, in a certain direction. But if any leads seemed promising, it may have been helpful to ask the public about certain areas or locations, but every different police authority has its own processes. There had been 2 witnesses who were out jogging in the early morning hours of July the 10th, 2016. They claimed to witness a white van speeding through Korsor Station on the narrow asphalt road that Emilie was known to have been walking on. The runners actually said that this person was driving so erratically that they had to jump off of the side of the road to avoid being hit. Then another witness came forward to say that they also saw a white van that looked suspicious in Lishkov in Korsor at around 4 a.m, also on the morning of Emilie's disappearance. This witness had been out for a morning walk when he saw the white van around 6 kilometers away from the Korsor Station. And they described this car as being like a Mercedes Sprinter. The witness said that this van had been driving insanely fast with the headlights off and had driven back and forth on the same road about 4 times. He said that this was suspicious because why in the world would someone be driving like that so early in the morning? I would say driving like that at any time, to be fair, but in the dark with no lights would have been especially odd. Another witness then came forward to say that around 10 p.m. on July the 10th, around 20 hours after Emilie was last seen, she also saw a white van near the Rennie Marks Backer Lake. She said that she was actually on this road because she had been dropping a colleague off at work in the area. Then after dropping the colleague off, she drove back on the same road. And she saw that the van was still parked there. However, she said at this time the car was no longer moving. She tried driving past it closer this time to see if anybody was inside. But once again, she didn't see anybody. When she found out about Emilie's body being found in this lake, she checked her schedule to make sure that it was on the same day, July the 10th, and it was. So she went to the police to report what she had seen. But once again, it's kind of seemed like police just brushed her off. To this day, this witness has come forward to say that she is terrified that what she saw on that day was Emilie's body being dumped. Of course, it could have been a horrible coincidence, but I imagine cars parked near the lake in this area and at that time would have been rare, so her concerns were probably valid. On the 26th of December, a memorial service was held at Korsor Station, attended by several hundreds of people, including the mayor of the Slarelska municipality, whose name was Sten Knut. On the 30th of December, Emilie's family requested the removal of all missing person posters, since she had now been found. Her funeral was held on the 19th of January 2017 in St. Pavel's Church in Korsor, and she was buried in Korsor Church Cemetery. Now, police were confident that the car that all of these witnesses came forward saying that they saw was a white Hyundai i30. because it had actually been captured on surveillance video. These witnesses, all seeing a white vehicle, were validated. In June of 2017, the South Zeeland and Lolland Falster police published the results of technical examinations of a surveillance recording from Korsor Station. The police's reconstruction of the video showed footage of an indoor corridor in addition to a view towards the station's car park in the top left corner. Quite faintly, a bright passenger car could be seen driving around about 4:07 a.m. on the 10th of July 2016. The poor quality of the video made it difficult to determine the car's model, but following several months of work abroad, it was an expert's assessment that it most likely was a Hyundai i30 model from 2011 to 2016. By then, police had interrogated roughly 650 people in the case, written close to 2,000 reports, and compared approximately 400,000 cars with telephone information as a cross-check. On the 15th of April 2023 at around 11:45 a.m. local time, a 13-year-old girl disappeared in Kirkerup in the Slagelse municipality after finishing delivery of newspapers to the surrounding area. The same day, police, cooperating with other authorities, used dogs, drones and helicopters to secure evidence. A local property was cordoned off on the following morning. At 10:57 a.m., police authorities stated they were working based on the assumption that a crime had been committed. The event drew intensive media coverage in Denmark towards the otherwise relatively unknown village. Early in the afternoon, police called for a press conference to be held at 3 p.m. After a slight delay, Police Inspector Kim Cleaver announced that a 32-year-old man, just before the conference was to have begun, had been arrested in his house in Svenstrup, Korsor, in which the missing girl was found, alive and conscious. Her mother wrote, "27 hours of nightmare is over, and my dearly beloved," victim's name, which was retracted, "is back home." In addition, the Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, expressed her gratitude. Correlation to the murder of Emilie was at this point not publicly known, and this was confirmed by police on the 24th of April, because on that 24th of April it was reported that police seized a white Hyundai i30 in Slovakia that had been sold to a Slovak family in 2016, matching the model linked to Meng's 2016 murder. At a South Zeeland and Lolland Falster police press conference on April the 26th, authorities announced that a 32-year-old suspect had been charged with Emilie Meng's murder and a separate unsolved crime in Sorrow from November of 2022. That same day, police confirmed the suspect was questioned in 2016 during Emilie's murder investigation, with his DNA among some 1,450 samples collected. But the victim's DNA sample was too degraded and mixed for analysis with the technology that was available at that time. On the 18th of April, the 32-year-old defendant was arraigned at the court of Nijved, charged with, at 11:45 on 15th of April, having initiated a long-lasting deprivation of liberty, as well as committed violence, threats of violence, and several rapes against the 13-year-old. He pleaded partly guilty. What that means, I don't know. But he was pre-trial detained until the 11th of May, with his name being prohibited from public release. The judge argued for the detention partly by reason of the probability that other perpetrators could be at large.
The case went cold for many years, but in connection with the abduction of a 13-year-old girl who had been out finishing her paper route, the police searched this man's house and found some evidence. I will return to that. But the case about the 13-year-old girl happens in this small town called Kirkerup. It's in the middle of Sjælland, and for those of you who are not familiar with Denmark, you have Copenhagen up here, and then you have the town where the 13-year-old girl was abducted down here, and Emilie Meng, she was abducted over here in Korsor. If you go closer to Korsor, you have the train station up here. This is the place where Emilie Meng was last seen, and in connection with the last sighting of her, there was a sighting of a white Hyundai i10. This car had been put in connection to the suspect. It was sold, and I think the police found it in Slovenia, and it's back in Denmark. We didn't hear anything in court today if there's any evidence in that car, but we'll return to what evidence the police presented today. In Denmark, you have to present evidence to a judge to keep a person in pre-trial detainment, and you can then be detained for up to 4 weeks, and then the police will have to come back and say, well, we are still looking at this, and we have this evidence, and we think if he is let loose, he can try to do something to hinder the investigation. But the judge today said, with the new evidence, the police can keep him in prison for another 4 weeks at least. This train station is where Emilie Meng was abducted. She was later found in this wooded area near a town called Borup. That's closer to Copenhagen, and it's also closer to the area where the 13-year-old girl was abducted. But he's also charged with assault of a 15-year-old girl in a town called Sorø. That's almost halfway between the place where Emilie Meng disappeared and where she was found.
Now, despite this name ban, which is normal for serious cases in Denmark and automatically removed once a person has been convicted, the defendant's name still ended up circulating on social media. On the 24th of April 2024, the name ban against the now 33-year-old defendant, Philip Patrick West, was lifted. West's trial began on the 14th of May at Nijved Courthouse. There he admitted long-term kidnapping, sexual relationship other than intercourse, illegal coercion, and violence against the 13-year-old girl. She was bound with plastic strips when the police found her at West's residence. He also admitted possession of child pornography. What a lovely guy. But he pleaded not guilty to the rest of the charges, which included attempted murder against a 13-year-old, the murder of Emilie Meng, and attempted rape and kidnapping of a 15-year-old Efterskole student in Sorrow. But despite his pleas of innocence to some of his charges, in June of 2024, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for her murder and the abductions of 2 other girls. So that was the elongated case of Emilie Meng. To be fair, the police never gave up, even if on the surface they looked like they weren't doing much. But it may well be that keeping information close to their chests may have caused the investigation to take longer than it needed to. It took another abduction for the police to link the perpetrator of that crime to Emilie's disappearance and murder. But what this case also shows us is that even in hitherto tranquil places, cockwombles are everywhere, and a young girl just starting her journey into adult life was stolen from the world, and there's no knowing how many other young girls suffered at the hands of this seemingly normal guy hiding in plain sight. This video is of course dedicated to Emilie Meng, who should have been left wondering what her boyfriend was playing at and navigating young love and relationships, rather than facing a terrifying and painful ordeal. I send love to all of those affected by her disappearance and murder, and only hope that now that there has been a resolution and a measure of justice served, that they can continue to heal. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. If you've made it this far in the episode, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. It would really help me out. And better late than never. I'm Steve. This part-timer is Samson. And we will see you when we see you.
Say that you're ready, but you won't like it. You say that